Coming up on today's episode, we get to live vicariously through a young and courageous woman by the name of Agnes Lindvall. We explore how she broke out of some of her comfort zones, found love unexpectedly, and continues to live life on her own terms. Welcome to the Colorful Layers podcast, a platform for unfiltered women conversations. My name is Khomoto Taji, but you can just call me Moto. I'm a former radio broadcaster with a love for storytelling. Join me each week as we plug up the courage to peel through life's sometimes beautiful or messy, but always colorful life stories and experiences with amazing women from various walks of life. Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in. Today's episode is coincidentally titled Coloring Outside the Lines. Yep, we just love colors on this podcast. The Google or the dictionary meaning defines the term as to not follow the rules, or to think creatively, or to behave in an unconventional manner. An image that props up in my mind when I think of this term is of a kid with a handful of coloring pens and a book. But instead of sticking to the outlined drawings, they then choose to experiment and color outside the lines. Depending on their parents or maybe teacher, they will either be applauded and encouraged, or the child will be discouraged to portray this kind of behavior. Although this is a reference that relates to children, I also think that it's the perfect reference to the journey of adulting. But instead of using coloring books and pens, if only life was that easy, we then use our life's paths. You will either be an individual that chooses to color within the lines or one that chooses the outside. Neither choices are bad, but instead, I believe they each have their own merits. But for today's episode, we will be focusing on the ones who choose to color outside the lines. Usually when you hear of stories of individuals who portray this sort of behavior, it's through, leading courageous or adventurous lives. There's always tales around how they conquered one's fears, like maybe they summited Mount Everest, they're trailblazer, pioneers, and so on and so forth. One of my favorite authors, Chimamanda Adichie Ngozi, once gave a talk around heroes. This was during her visit to South Africa to celebrate the late Nelson Mandela's 100th centenary. And I quote her very loosely. But she said that heroes were ordinary individuals who made a decision once, or maybe performed an action that had a powerful impact on society. But outside of that event or phase, were really just generally ordinary beings. But we then, as society, often expect these individuals to behave like this on a daily basis and just have superhuman expectations from them, which I feel is unfair when they are just ordinary beings like you and I. These individuals are usually people that we refer to as heroes, celebrities, and leaders. And because of this, for me personally, I often feel as though their stories can sometimes feel a little far out of reach. Obviously, that's depending on your confidence levels. But if you look around, you might just find that there are several women in your everyday life that lead perfect examples of this. And this is what we will be focusing on today. On today's episode, our guest is a young woman who is the perfect example of this. She has made decisions and taken steps in her everyday life that show this. And she gave me the opportunity to peel through her personal layers and explore the domino effect this has had on her life story.
My name is Agnes Lindvall. I am originally from Tanzania, but I've been living in Sweden since 2014. So that's approximately 7 years ago I moved here. I live here with my husband. I live in the southern part of Sweden in a university town called Lund. I went to Lund University. My entire family is in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. And I miss them so much. But living in a different country is also something that I really enjoy.
Oh, that's amazing. So you have very different coloring pens and also like a collection of coloring books. And I'm saying this metaphorically in terms of the adventures and the decisions that you've made, right? And I'd like us to just start like from the beginning, which is just a little bit of the journey of your schooling career and how this has almost like created a golden thread in terms of your life. So can you just take us through the journey of your schooling career?
To begin with, as I said, I was born and raised in Tanzania, but until the age of 8, around 8, 9, my parents, they sent me to a boarding school just across the border in Kenya. So I was in a boarding school with strangers. At that young age, I can't imagine today a parent sending their child to a boarding school when they're very young. But they did that because they it was the best thing to do back in the days, in the 90s. You send your child to a boarding school to get the education that you couldn't get in your town. My parents live in a really small town in northern Tanzania. They didn't have maybe the best private schools. So having to go to a neighboring country in a boarding school was the best option that they had. And they sent me there. It was really tough because I didn't know when I'm sick or when I'm sad, who do I go to? There are hundreds of children. Everyone needs attention. You don't get that in a boarding school when you're at that young age. You kind of learn to survive. So it was more of a survival way of life.
And would you say that was the onset in terms of your independence? Because from such a young age, not only being in boarding school, but in a foreign country all by yourself.
Absolutely. I would say that because I had to learn how to do laundry. I had to learn how to get water and make sure that I have all my books prepared for tomorrow, have all my homework done, have to study, to wake up early, to do all these things without having a parent telling me what to do. I had just a set of rules set by the school. These are the rules you have to follow. Wake up at 6, do this and this and that, be in class at this time, don't miss breakfast. You have to be out of the dormitory at this time. So you have this lifestyle built around all these kind of rules or guidelines, depending with how you see them. So these guidelines actually just built me. I feel like they prepared me for the future. But once I was done with my primary school, I went to live with my parents. So I moved back to Tanzania to be with my parents, where I went through high school. So I went to a high school that was a day school. I was going to school and coming home, which was kind of different. So for the first time in my teenage years, I was with my parents. I was getting new guidance that I never got when I was in primary school. So that was also something that was quite new. But I think they did a good job because I was a good kid, maybe. It wasn't such of a different. I don't remember being a difficult teenager.
I think they did a good job. Amazing. But that obviously didn't stop there, because then after that you left the country to go and study further, right?
Yeah. When I finished high school, I had a choice of waiting for to be selected to go to a government university, or taking a step further and applying to different universities that I thought my parents could have. I thought that's exactly what you have to do. You go through primary school, you go through high school, you go to university, and then you get a job, and then you start living the life. So I was like, oh, now I'm ready. I applied for jobs. Finally, I got accepted by one company in Dar es Salaam. I was very happy finally that I'm moving back to be close to my parents. I was in my early 20s and I was really excited. So my very first job in a company that I really loved, I was ready to live the life and just be comfortable. So I started working.
Start making money.
I think this is the point where I think around this age was the last time I ever got any penny from my parents. It was so hard. It was such a relief to make my own money finally and decide what I want to do with my money. And I thought this was the life. I was ready now. And I was happy with my job. Everything was going so well. And then I felt like 1.5, 2 years into it, I felt like I was getting very comfortable. Up to this time, I felt like I was living through a checklist. I went to school, I went to university, I got a job, and now what?
So let's talk about that getting comfortable feeling, Agnes. Yeah. What does it look like? What does it feel like? And why did you have an issue with it?
I had an issue with being comfortable because I looked around me, people, my friends from high school, the people that were in my age group were maybe getting married, they were getting engaged, they were getting babies. And here I was. And I felt like, I think I've lived my life perfectly well throughout, and I don't want to continue the same way. I'm getting very comfortable. I have my employer is treating me well, they pay me well, and I have a job, I have friends, and then everyone is expecting me now. I have to get married because now I don't have, like, I have already finished my undergraduate and now I'm working. So the next step is getting married and starting a family. And that's where I started feeling like, I don't think I'm ready for that yet. There's so much more to life than living through a checklist, checking through everything. And if I looked at my mom, and my mom is expecting me to maybe get engaged and get married at that age, and I've just been into my job 2 years, I was getting scared. I feel like the walls were closing in.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in. Coming up, we explore how she broke out of some of her comfort zones, found love unexpectedly, and continues to live life on her own terms. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Colorful Layers podcast. The Colorful Layers podcast.
I like academics. I like studying. I like advancing my knowledge. And at that point in life, I feel like I wasn't where I wanted to be in terms of the amount of knowledge that I had to offer to the world. Just 2 semesters, 1 year, which would have given me an opportunity to step out of my comfort zone, step out of my desk from my job, go to a new country, meet a whole different kind of people, and learn something new, and then come back and see how that feels after. So that was the plan. I spoke to my employer and I told them that I got this amazing opportunity that I want to pursue for 1 year, and I don't want to lose my job. I love what I'm doing and I want to keep it. So my employer was like, oh, brilliant. So they let me go to be on sabbatical leave.
Wow, you must have been very important to them.
I think they were very supportive, and that's what when I decided that I was going to go, I was very sure that I wanted to come back, because not every day you ask an employer to go away for a year and they say yes. The fact that they said yes, it showed that they really cared for me and they wanted me to be there. So
now, like sometimes people think about going abroad, studying abroad and so on, but challenges like finances and things like that always stand in. Did those things not intimidate you?
They did. But one thing I knew for sure was that the most important thing is being accepted into an institution. And once you get accepted into an institution, the second part is finding the funds for it. So when I decided that I want to go study, I didn't let the financial aspect of it block my dreams. What was driving me at that point was that I have a goal, and the goal is to advance my education. I don't have the money. I don't know how much it's going to cost to go abroad. But the most important thing is that I have to have the admission. So for me, in my head, I was thinking that I might have all the money in the world. I might have a few $1 million, for example. But if no institution wants me to study at their institution, my money doesn't mean anything. Yeah. So that's why, even though I didn't have money, but I was like, I'm going to apply. If I get in, then I'll think about the money. And that's exactly what happened. So I applied for the different universities in Sweden. And then once I got in, I started looking for ways to get funding. And that's when I came across there was an opportunity for this organization called the Swedish Institute to fund students from particular countries from Africa. So that's how I got my funding. But that didn't come until I had the admission. You have to show them the admission for them to give you the funding. That's what happened. Yeah.
That's amazing. I think there's 2 things here. So often for me, that's one of the blockages that I usually create for myself, whereby, for instance, I'll have like a goal or something that I want to do. But then I'll think, not only like just the one step that I need to do, but I'll think 10 steps ahead. And so because when I get to the 9th or the 8th step, it just doesn't make sense and I don't know how, then it even stops me from taking the first step, So I like that you didn't allow the fact that, you don't know how you're going to pay for it, whatever, stop you. You just broke your dreams into steps and you accomplished each step as it came along, or each challenge as it came along. So that's a very good lesson there for me.
Yeah, don't worry about the money. The money will come once you have been admitted. Also happens in businesses. people start worrying, like, I don't have money to do a business. Do you have a business idea, something good? So think about what you want to do. And then the money is not the problem. It's like the idea is what makes things happen. And the money follows you after that.
That's
the same mindset that I applied to when I was applying for studies, even though I didn't have a penny for that.
So Agnes, let's talk about, obviously you get into this country and I think just like in general, like, from your boarding school career to your varsity years, you've been going into these foreign country. Now you're in and out of Africa. How does this contribute to changing your mindset? Does your mindset change at all? Does the way that you look at things change?
Yeah. So when I started my university in Sweden, in the beginning, everything looked so scary. I was scared in the beginning because I didn't know anyone. I didn't have any friends. I didn't know anyone at all except my classmates. I like when I got into that position, okay, I'm far away from home. If something happens, I have no one to call. And I felt like everything I've done since childhood was probably preparing for this moment, far away from home. So I would say that I didn't feel scared, even though I had initially been feeling very scared, but I didn't feel scared. I was focusing on doing what I came there to do. I was like living in Tanzania or in Kenya, you are surrounded by people of your own, like your own kind. And when I say my own kind, like you're used to the same food, you're used to the way you talk is just the same. And then you go to a whole different place with people from different parts of the world, and you have to adapt to each and every one of them, or how you talk, how you express yourself, the gestures that you use. So you kind of like change a lot. You learn a lot from different people, and you pick the bits and pieces of the best things of different cultures, and it really changes you. It builds you up. It pushes you out of your comfort zone. The things that you really enjoyed maybe doing back home or where you are from, and then you go to a whole new kind of like a melting pot, and it's just exciting how you could use that to communicate to other people.
True. And I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine where we were talking about how I'll use South Africa, obviously, because that's my reference. In South Africa, there's certain industries where we feel like there's not a lot of opportunities when it comes to, those specific industries. And so sometimes you always think, because it's like this, then, my dream needs to end, or, this is the end of it. But actually, if you start to think of, it might be like this for South Africa, but maybe it's not like that in other countries, then you're opening yourself up to more opportunities. And maybe even when you're in that space, you'll realize that there could even be layers or other passions that can even come to life.
Yeah, exactly.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in. Coming up, we explore how she found love unexpectedly and continues to live life on her own terms.
Yeah. So during my studies, I met amazing people. I met this particular friend of mine. She's still a friend of mine. So one day, this student calls me and tells me, Agnes, we have to go on a weekend trip to Berlin. We were going to be in Berlin for the entire weekend and come back on Sunday. I was like, okay, fine. This was like very spontaneous, but I love that kind of being very spontaneous without plans, just take it as it comes. And that was the kind of person I was on that weekend. So we go for this trip in Berlin. I met amazing people. I had so much fun. It was my first time in Germany. We come back to Sweden. And then after a few weeks, I receive a message from a name that I didn't even know. So I searched for this person, and I realized that we have common friends. And the common friend is one of the girls I was in this trip. So I accepted the friend request, and then this particular person started saying hi. We started talking. Apparently, he was also in the trip to Berlin, and he saw me, and he thought it could just be cool to talk. I was like, yeah, fine. We started talking, and then we realized that he works out a lot. So he was like, oh, yeah, I have to go to the gym. I was like, yeah, I also have to go to the gym. What gym are you going to? So we started, our friendship developed around working out.
Wow. So just a quick one, Agnes. So
Yeah.
you mentioned that you didn't actually talk to him in Berlin. So how did he get a hold of your contacts?
He got a hold of my contact because I was tagged in a picture. In one of the pictures. Yeah. So he had, So I had just started working out and I didn't know how to work out at the gym. So he was like, I'm going to come help you. So that's how our friendship started. And that's actually when I knew that there might be something here. But at the end of the day, I was feeling like I'm here for 1 year. This is the first semester. The second semester is starting soon. And after that will be the end of it, because you don't really know. You go abroad, you meet people, you really click with them, but you just don't know how far it's going to go from there. But I was open to that kind of friendship. It wasn't like planned long term. But then something happened. He asked me, I know you're going home next month. I want to come with you. I want to see your country. I want to see your family. I want to see where you're from. I was very surprised. I didn't expect that from him. I was done with my studies. I was going back home. I was going back to my job. I promised my boss I was coming back after 1 year. My 1 year was up. I was supposed to go back to my life. And this person, this amazing friend that I met, wants to come with me. And I just said yes. I said, okay, fine. I'll email my father and tell him that I'm coming with a friend. On the day that I was coming, I unfortunately, we couldn't get into the same flight. I took a flight a day earlier, and the following day I went to pick him up at the airport. He met my family, and then we had decided that we're going to travel a little bit. So I had to call the company and tell them, I'm going to prolong my sabbatical leave for 5 more weeks. Is that okay? And they said yes. I think I had amazing bosses, and they're also very understanding. And so we started traveling together. So our trip was, we took buses and trains. I mean, you can't just Google somewhere and get a whole itinerary from Dar es Salaam all the way to Cape Town and back to Tanzania. We had to put bits and pieces of all that together to make this trip. So what I learned from this trip was that I think I could spend many years with this person, because not a single day we had to argue of what to do or where to go, or we disagreed on anything, nothing. And this is someone I had known for a few months. So it was for the first time I felt like, oh, wow, could I consider spending years with this person? Because it feels so easy without any situations that would have made me decide, okay, now I think I'm going to go back home. Nothing. Everything was so smooth. And after the trip, when we came back home, he said goodbye, that he was going back to Sweden. It was so sad, And I feel like, oh, this is a nice person I met. Let's see how things go from here. And also that trip taught me something. It taught me that I am a very patient person. He's a very patient person. So that thing was, we just clicked in that sense. Like it just made me realize that, okay, maybe this could be someone I would consider spending my life with. But that was something that was just in my head. I never gave it much thought, because he was coming back to Sweden to finalize his master's degree, and I was going back to work, and that's exactly what happened. So he jumps in on the next flight to Sweden. The following Monday, I go back to work.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in. Coming up, we explore how she continues to live life on her own terms.
Over the next few weeks, we're in different continents, but then our relationship is even much closer. And that was interesting. I thought that was the end of it. But here we are. We talk every day. We have a really good time, even though we have this distance between us. And then after 6 months, we decided that we have to take a decision. And at that time, he had graduated and he was looking for a job. And then he had a different idea. He told me, since you have been here before, maybe you should come here, because you could easily adjust within maybe a few months. He thought it would take him a while to adjust with the language and getting a job, especially that he was fresh from school. And I had some years of experience.
obviously the relationship progressed. You guys got married, right?
Yeah.
You got to a point where you had to challenge your, how do I say, cultural norms.
I have been taught to behave in a certain kind of way, especially when you have a husband or you have a partner. As a woman, you know your place. He always is right, no matter what. And so he would say something that makes me sad, or he would say something that I wouldn't agree with. I wouldn't have an opinion. I would just be quiet. I wouldn't want to put my point across. So one day he would say, if you don't agree with what I say, you have to say you don't agree. You have to have a voice. I don't think, I really agree with where you're coming from culturally, but I'm not always right. You have to have your opinion. And that's when a whole new person was born in me, honestly. So someone just gave me a ticket to express myself.
Amazing. And you also mentioned that when you guys got married, in your culture, they request dowry.
And before that, he called my father and told my father that me and Agnes are going to get married, which was a bit different because in my culture, he would have had to go to my father together with someone else and talk to my father, for example, and ask for my hand in marriage. And my father would have to discuss with other members of the family. But he didn't do that. He skipped all these traditions and he just called my father and told my dad that I'm going to propose to your daughter tomorrow. And my dad said, okay, good luck. In my head, I'm like, oh, wow. And so he proposed to me and I said yes. And now it was time to prepare the marriage. But before that, we have to do the dowry ceremony. So I told my husband that I don't think, my fiancé then, I don't think you are going to pay the dowry. So I had decided that he wasn't going to pay the dowry. And he asked me, why? Isn't your dad going to say anything? And I told him that I don't support the thing behind the dowry. So I think we're going to skip that.
Can I ask, Agnes, for you personally, what was the reason behind not agreeing or supporting the dowry method?
I didn't support the dowry method because I felt like I could get married with whichever partner of my choice without a group of people. At least that's what happens in my culture, where a group of people sit down to discuss how much my partner is going to pay. He's going to pay or he's going to give to my family as a thank you or as appreciation. I felt like they have their lives merged together. So I didn't feel like there was any significance in having people who are not involved in that union. That was one part. And the second part, I've known instances where a man pays a dowry to the woman's family and gets the woman to live with them. And then they don't treat them well. And once they don't treat them well, the woman runs away. They go back to the family of the wife and take away the dowry. They take it back. It feels like it's something they put there to have the woman, and then if the woman doesn't behave or the woman is not acting the way she should act according to them, they return this woman, or this woman runs away and they go back, take the dowry and goes around to another family. And so it didn't feel like I didn't want to support that. And I feel like I would never be proud of telling my children about this kind of culture. I wouldn't be proud to be part of it. It's not appreciation. This is like something that terrorizes women. And I didn't want to be part of that. I was very scared that my part of the family won't accept it. I never got any support from all my sisters. Like I have 4 sisters. None of them supported that my future husband was not paying a dowry or bride price. Only my father supported the fact that I didn't want it to be paid, and I didn't want anyone to stop the process. I wanted everyone to accept that there won't be any exchange of anything called a bride price. And the reason being, I don't support the culture. Wow. And we move on.
Another example of Agnes coloring outside the lines.
Can you relate to Agnes's story? Feel free to comment and share your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Colourful Layers podcast.
So you mentioned the fact that, your husband encouraged you to speak up, to express your opinion, and even when you disagree. But also there was a difference in terms of how you were used to the dynamics between a man and a woman in the house, that you started to see that they're different in your marriage, but also just the people around you in that country.
Yeah. So my very first experience of being with a Swedish family in their household. So I go to the household and we're all sitting by the table, and there's mom and dad, the auntie and the uncle. And the auntie comes just and sits and enjoys her glass of wine. And the father is in the kitchen bringing in all the food. And I was really surprised because in my household where I grew up, my father would forbid my brother from going into the kitchen. And I remember I would be against that. So when I saw this kind of thing where like all the men or all the women were in the kitchen and it was fine, nobody felt like they were forbidden to do anything, it felt so empowering. The fact that there's no boundaries or where like, Agnes, your job is only to do this and my job is only to do this. It's just so refreshing knowing that if I'm working late, there's someone at home who will cook. Or I know if there's laundry in the laundry room, someone will get them. Like I don't have to feel like I have to do it because I have to do it because I'm a woman. So that kind of lifestyle is something that was new to me. And I cannot unsee, like once I've been in this setting of like this Swedish lifestyle where there are no boundaries of what men and women can do, it gets very difficult to me when I go back home. And I have to see all the women running around in the kitchen and all the men just sitting there enjoying their maybe a glass of beer because they're not allowed to do this or that. So it's actually very interesting.
True. All right. So, I mean, just listening to your story, you've just really been fearless. Because I keep wanting to go back to like, was there ever a point where fear, and you made it clear that you haven't, you really have never allowed doubt or fear to get in and stop you from doing things or trying things. But have you had moments where in this whole thing, things did not work out how you expected them? And if so, how did you deal with that?
So I think career-wise, in the beginning, when I moved here, and I used the like a big part of the first year and a half to learn Swedish. That was my main point. I spent a year and a half learning Swedish. Eventually, I got into a company. And this company, because I'm a finance and accounting professional, I like working with numbers, and that's exactly what I wanted when I went into this. So because I was new and I was getting into that company as an entry-level employee. And so after 6 months, they told me that there's no opening in the finance department. But if I wanted to stay in the company, they could offer me something else within the organization. Was that okay? They asked me. And I said, oh, yeah. So they put me in supply chain management. I was there for 2 years, almost 3 years. And over the years, I was hoping that, okay, I love working with numbers, but they're giving me something, a different area of the organization, working with making sure that things are delivered and purchasing, looking at prices. I was giving it time, like, I'm going to enjoy this. Every day I was telling myself, oh, I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to enjoy this. This is something new and I have to learn. Definitely I'm going to enjoy it. But after 2.5 years, not loving what I was doing, I felt something was wrong. I need to step back. So what I did, I was like, I'm going to go back to school and do just stepping out away from like working in this area that I'm not enjoying, taking time off to reorganize myself and see where this takes me. So after 2.5, almost 3 years, I applied to do a second master's in finance, because I loved working with numbers and I feel like I've been working with something not related to finance or accounting for almost 3 years, actually almost 4 years. And every time I tried to move into another organization to work with the area of the organization that I wanted, I wasn't getting in because I was away for too long. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be a student for a year as I figure out how I'm going to go back in and work in an area that I really enjoy. So I went back to school and then I applied for jobs in the area that I wanted. So finally, I get this amazing job at a company that I really enjoy working there in exactly the area that I wanted to work with. And I realized that, I was like, it was a big challenge for me to just stick in there working with maybe supply chain. I don't enjoy it. I gave it time. I gave it my all. I tried so hard. But then I realized that, you cannot go on forever complaining about something. You really have to step back. It might make you a bit, you might feel like you're losing focus. Why are you doing this? But if it's the right thing, it's the right. And so sometimes I feel like you shouldn't be scared of taking a step back.
You shouldn't give up, because I think you didn't give up. That's amazing.
Yeah. Even if it means going back to school again. But
sure,
maybe this situation wouldn't apply to everyone, because not every country has free education. In Sweden, education is free.
I see.
You want to go back to study a PhD, you can do that if you get accepted in a university.
Amazing.
Whatever you want to study, yeah.
Yeah. But I also think that the fact that you didn't give up, because somebody else would have just continued and just been bitter and felt sorry for themselves. But you sat back with yourself, you had a conversation, and then you devised a plan and you continued to try. So that's amazing. For me, I have a few friends who have had this dream that, they want to go abroad, they want to be able to pursue, education, whatever, but they've just always encountered challenges and haven't been able to do that. Or just for somebody who's sitting there and they're thinking about doing what you have done, but maybe they're scared or their parents are fearful. Like, what advice or what would you say?
There's a lot of money out there going around for everyone to go to school, for everyone to pursue whatever, if it has something to do with education, for whatever educational dreams that they have. If it's about the money, don't think about the money. Set your mind on the main goal. Is it a master's degree, or is it a PhD? Make sure that you have maybe a very an admission or anything that make sure that you reach that goal, and then think about the money. So the money should never be the roadblock for whatever you want to do. You want to go abroad, you want to travel, you want to, whatever you do, don't think about the money. Think about the route to get there first. And then you'll know how much money you need, because otherwise you will never know. If you focus your goals like, okay, I can't do this because I don't have money. The different opportunities when you look for them. So forget about the money. Assume that you have all the money in the world. But what exactly, and what's the path to get what you want? And then the money part will come. And then that's when you start thinking of different ways of how you get the money. There's like scholarships to go study abroad. There is fellowship. There's a lot of opportunities out there, but you cannot know they exist until you know that if you have a clear goal. So having a clear goal is one of the things that you have to focus on first before even thinking whether you have the money or not. And then the second part is not being fearful, stepping out of your comfort zone. Because, for example, you live in a city and you just love being there. But have you ever imagined yourself being in a whole new environment,
Sure.
New language, everything new? How would that? So imagining yourself in a new situation and trying to just do the things that you need to do to get yourself there.
How do you stop the fear from just creeping into your mind or your heart?
I think the best way to stop the fear from creeping into like the fear from stopping you is thinking. Like, let's say 20 years down the line, will I be happy to be where? Are you happy? Whatever path you're walking, would you like to be walking on that same path 20, 30, 40 years down the line? If the answer is no, then you have to move, because fear won't get you where you want to be. But if you feel like the path that I'm walking, I'm just happy where I am. I'm so comfortable that I totally see myself being exactly where I am. Like, I'm happy where I am, even if it's 30, 40 years down the line, then you're okay.
Amazing.
So the only way to stop the fear is just to know that this is not where I want to be 40 years from now, and then go from there.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Colourful Layers podcast.
When you were a young girl, is this what you dreamed of for becoming when you were an adult, or are you even living?
Honestly, very unplanned. I never had a dream of living in any country. I never had a plan of exactly how my life would turn out. I just, every day, I think I live my life knowing that there's more to life. There's always a better thing out there. There's something better that's going to happen if you don't, you're not too comfortable you're not too comfortable in your comfort zone, just stepping out of your comfort zone and trying to make things it's just interesting that I never had a checklist for anything, how my life would be, or the kind of, for example, the kind of husband or the kind of partner or the kind of friends that I would have. I kind of accept things and adapt into them than having to know that, okay, this is my wildest dream and this is how it's going to look like. It's just recently that I realized that it's very important to visualize things and see how they turn out. Mm-hmm. So I'm experimenting with that at the moment and see how things will be 5 years down the line. But before that, I just have this strong faith that this is what I want and I'm going to go for that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Sure.
And just like that, we have come to the end of our episode. A huge thank you to Agnes for opening up the doors to her life to us. And another thank you to you for tuning in. Can you relate to Agnes's story, or were you inspired by any of it? Please do comment and share your thoughts. And while you're at it, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the Colourful Layers podcast. Catch you on the next episode.